There's this really weird paradox at the heart of modern AI. We're building these models that can do things that feel like they're straight out of science fiction, tasks that would push even a human expert. But then you ask them to do something a third grader could do, and that's when it all gets a little strange.
So let's dive right into this contradiction. Because on one hand, these large language models are, well, geniuses. But on the other, they're kind of like that brilliant professor who can solve quantum physics but can't figure out how to tie their own shoes.
I mean, just picture a future model. Let's call it GPT 5.2. This thing is so smart, it can write incredibly complex code for stuff like fluid dynamics simulations. We're talking about modeling the airflow over a jet wing or predicting weather patterns. This isn't just memorizing code. It suggests a really deep understanding of some tough concepts.
So you'd think, okay, if it can do all that, it's definitely got the basics down cold, right? But what happens when you give this super genius AI a problem you might find in a grade school workbook? The answers are not just wrong, they're baffling.
Okay, so check this out. You ask it if this simple string of parentheses is balanced. GPT 5.2 comes back super confident, yes they are. And it even lays out this whole step-by-step reasoning that looks pretty convincing at first glance. But it's totally wrong. It just flat out miscounts.
And it's not just some abstract logic puzzle. Look at this, a simple multiplication problem. It's off by exactly 100. It's the kind of subtle, careless mistake that could so easily go unnoticed if it was buried inside a much bigger, more complicated task.
It gets even more fundamental than that. It can't even tell you if the number of ones in a short binary string is even or odd. And this isn't just a random fluke, it's pointing to a massive gap in what the AI can actually do, a kind of blind spot that our usual tests just seem to be missing.
So this begs the question, right? If our normal ways of testing are missing these huge, basic flaws, how in the world are we supposed to find them? Well, we need a totally new kind of measuring stick, one that's designed to find the exact breaking point of an AI's reliability. And that new measuring stick is called the Zero Error Horizon, or ZEH for short. The idea behind it is actually super simple. Instead of asking, how often does the AI get it right, ZEH asks, up to what point does the AI get it right every single time? It's not about getting a good grade on average. It's about finding the absolute limit of perfect performance.
Think of it like a high jump competition for the AI. You start with the bar really low, the simplest possible problems. It clears it, great. You raise the bar a little higher, make the problem a bit harder. You just keep raising the bar step by step until, eventually, it fails. That last height it cleared perfectly, that's its zero error horizon.
And when we use this on our hypothetical GPT 5.2, we get this incredibly clear, no-nonsense report card. For multiplication, its ZHE is 126. It's perfect up to that point. But the very next problem, 127 times 82, is where it stumbles. For checking parity, it's flawless with 4 characters, but a 5-character string breaks it. ZHE gives us this precise, undeniable map of exactly where the AI's reliability ends. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Hold on, don't we already have things like accuracy to measure this? And that's a totally fair question, but as we're about to see, just looking at accuracy can actually hide more than it reveals.
You see, accuracy just gives you an average. It's like saying a bridge is 99% safe. That sounds pretty good, but it doesn't tell you about the one critical weak spot that's about to fail. ZALH is different. It's designed to find that one weak link, that very first crack. It's not about the average, it's about the guarantee.
This right here shows the problem perfectly. On the left, we've got a smaller, 7 billion parameter model. Think of it as a smaller brain. And on the right, a much bigger, 72 billion parameter one. Now, if you only test them on a limited range of problems, their accuracy scores are almost identical. You'd look at this and think, hey, the little one is just as good.
But, and this is a big but, watch what happens when we just expand the test range a little bit. Boom. The smaller model just completely falls apart. Its error rate goes through the roof. The accuracy metric was hiding a huge weakness simply because the test itself was too easy. We weren't seeing the full picture.
And that's exactly why ZH is so much more objective. It takes human bias and guesswork out of the picture. We don't decide when to stop testing, the model's own failure point does. So a ZH of 22 versus a ZH of 42, that's a real, measurable, and meaningful difference in capability. There's no hiding.
But here's where it gets even cooler. ZH isn't just a pass-fail test. It can actually give us a little peek under the hood to help us understand how these models are thinking. Are they actually understanding the problem, or are they just really, really good at memorizing?
The secret is to look really closely at that very first mistake, the ZEH limiter, as the researchers call it. The type of error the model makes when its perfect streak ends can actually tell us a whole lot about what's going on inside.
And this is where it gets really fascinating. As the models get bigger, the kind of mistakes they make changes. The smallest model makes a lot of what look like random, nonsensical errors. But look at the biggest model. 90% of its mistakes are structured. It stops making wild guesses and starts making very human-like errors, like forgetting to carry the 1 in multiplication. It's like it's trying to follow the rules, but just messes up a step.
Here's even more evidence for that. This chart basically asks one simple question. Is the AI just good at the problems it saw over and over again in its training data? And for the smallest model on the left, the connection is pretty strong. Yeah, it's basically a good student who memorized the textbook.
But as the models get bigger, that connection just plummets. They're getting much better at solving problems they've probably never seen before. And that suggests they're not just recalling answers they've memorized, they're actually starting to learn the underlying rules. They're shifting from just memorizing to actually reasoning.
Okay, so we can find an AI's limits, and we can even get clues about how it thinks. That's all really interesting, but what's the real-world takeaway here? Why does it matter so much if a super advanced AI messes up some simple math?
Well, it matters a ton, because ZHIA essentially gives us a practical safety label for using AI. It tells us, look, you can trust this model for any problem up to this size, but be really careful if you go beyond this point. It's a clear, bright red warning signal that helps us build systems that we can actually count on.
And that is absolutely critical. In high-stakes fields like medicine or finance, a 99.8% accuracy rate is not good enough if that tiny 0.2% chance of failure could lead to a total disaster. We have to know precisely where that line of perfect reliability is. We have to find those holes before they can cause real harm.
So, we're left with this huge question, right? As AI gets exponentially more powerful, how do we make sure it also becomes more trustworthy? Methods like the zero-error horizon are a vital step. They force us to look past the impressive high scores and start demanding real, provable reliability. Because a brilliant AI that you can't trust isn't just a paradox, it's a liability.